5.5 millennia ago, long before fairy tales were ever written, ancient storytellers whispered of gods who loved monsters, and mortals who fell for beings not quite human. From Sumerian temples to Greek scrolls and French salons, one idea has endured, that beauty and monstrosity are forever intertwined. This is not merely a love story, it is a mirror held up to humanity, a reflection of how we define goodness, power, and the face of the other. Across centuries, from mythic beasts to animated princes, this tale has resurfaced again and again, changing form but never fading. Why has this story, of beauty meeting the beast, survived longer than most civilizations themselves? And what hidden truths about human nature lie beneath its surface? To understand that, we must return to where it all began, in the oldest myths ever told. Long before the story of Beauty and the Beast became a beloved fairy tale, it existed as an ancient idea, one that stretched back thousands of years to the very roots of human storytelling. The theme of a human falling in love with a creature, or of a beast transformed by love, appeared long before the world had books or printing presses. It first lived in myths passed by word of mouth, across campfires and temples, carved into stone and sung by poets. The earliest traces of this story go back more than 5,000 years, to the dawn of civilization in Mesopotamia. The people who lived between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers told of gods and monsters who mirrored their fears and desires. Among their oldest myths is that of Inanna, the goddess of love and war, and the bull of heaven. In this tale, a divine creature is sent down to punish humanity, but through its destruction comes renewal and transformation. The story's power lay in how it joined beauty and terror in one act, showing that love and violence, creation and destruction, were bound together. In those early times, humans often saw beasts not just as animals, but as beings full of mystery and divine power. They were both feared and worshipped. The bull, lion, serpent, and dragon appeared in carvings as symbols of strength and danger. Yet these same creatures were also protectors and companions of gods. This duality, the beast as both danger and wisdom, became one of the most enduring ideas in myth. It was not far from imagining that such a being might also love or be loved. As the centuries passed, this theme found new forms in other cultures. In ancient Egypt, gods like Anubis, with the head of a jackal, or Bastet, the cat goddess, represented the blend of human and animal qualities. These figures were not seen as monsters, but as divine beings, bridging two worlds. They showed that what is different or frightening can also be sacred. This belief, repeated through generations, made it easier for later societies to tell stories where love could cross boundaries, even between beauty and beast. Moving forward in time, one of the most direct ancestors of Beauty and the Beast emerged in ancient Greece. Around the 4th century before Christ, Greek storytellers began circulating the tale of Eros and Psyche, which was later written down by the Roman writer Apuleius in The Golden Ass. In this story, Psyche, a mortal woman, becomes the wife of an unseen husband who visits her only at night. She lives in luxury, but is forbidden to look upon him. When she disobeys and lights a lamp, she discovers her husband is none other than Eros, the god of love himself. But her curiosity breaks the spell, and she must endure great trials to win him back. At its heart, this story carries many of the same ideas that define Beauty and the Beast. It explores curiosity, fear, and the tension between love and appearance. The unseen lover, the forbidden glance, and the redemptive power of understanding. All these would later become central parts of the European fairy tale. In Eros and Psyche, we also see a moral lesson that will echo through centuries. Love requires trust, and true transformation comes through inner virtue, not outward form. Greek and Roman myths often portrayed love between mortals and supernatural beings, from Zeus visiting women in strange forms to nymphs and satyrs caught in tragic desire. These stories reflected how ancient societies saw the divine as unpredictable and sometimes monstrous, yet irresistibly close to human experience. The line between God and beast, man and monster, was thin. When humans told stories about crossing that line, they were really talking about themselves, about the parts of human nature that were wild, unknown, or feared. By the time the Middle Ages arrived in Europe, this ancient thread had woven itself into folklore and legend. The classical gods were gone, but their ideas survived in new forms, in dragons, enchanted castles, and mysterious curses. The world of knights, maidens, and beasts became the perfect setting for stories that balanced fear and fascination. One famous example is the medieval legend of Cupid and Psyche retold in different Christianized forms. But even closer to the beauty and the beast theme is the tale of the man with a boar's head, known from various folk traditions. In these stories, a nobleman or prince is cursed with an animal's head or body and can only regain his human form through the love of a virtuous woman. The curse often reflects moral lessons of the time. Pride, vanity, or disobedience to God leads to punishment, but humility and love bring redemption. These tales were not just entertainment. They reflected the values and fears of medieval society, where appearances and inner morality were tightly linked. Beauty was often seen as a sign of virtue, and ugliness as a mark of sin. A story that reversed those ideas, where a beast could be good and a beauty could be judgmental, carried deep moral weight. The transformation element in these tales also connected to medieval beliefs about the soul. Many thought the outer form could reflect the state of one's spirit. A man turned into a beast was not simply cursed, he was symbolically stripped of his humanity. Redemption through love suggested that even the most lost or monstrous soul could be saved by compassion. This is why such stories were repeated across Europe, in Italy, Germany, France, and England, each with its own variations. By the 15th and 16th centuries, as Europe moved toward the Renaissance, these folktales began to be written down. One of the earliest literary versions that resembled Beauty and the Beast came from Italy. The writer Giovanni Francesco Straparola included a tale called The Pig King in his Facetious Nights, published in the early 1500s. In this story, a queen gives birth to a child cursed to be born a pig. Despite his monstrous appearance, he finds love and, through it, regains human form. This version kept the moral core of the myth while placing it in a courtly setting, suggesting that the tale was not just for peasants but also for nobles who saw reflections of their own vanity and virtue in it. Over the next 2 centuries, similar stories spread across Europe. French salons, especially those hosted by women writers known as les conteuses, became centers of storytelling and discussion about love, morality, and gender. It was in this environment that La Belle et la Bête, Beauty and the Beast, was born. The first well-known written version appeared in 1740 by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve. Her story was long and detailed, filled with moral reflection and magical imagery. Villeneuve's tale combined many older elements, the cursed prince, the virtuous maiden, and the test of love that restores humanity. But she also added a social layer. In her version, the beast's transformation was not only about breaking a curse, it was about recognizing true worth beyond wealth and appearance. This reflected the growing debates of her time about class, arranged marriage, and women's roles in society. A few years later, in 1756, Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont rewrote Villeneuve's story into a shorter, simpler version aimed at young readers. Her version is the one most people know today. It became the standard Beauty and the Beast story, the foundation for later adaptations, from stage plays to films. Beaumont's version made the moral clearer. Beauty must learn to see beyond appearances, and the beast must learn to be worthy of love. The journey from ancient myth to this polished fairy tale took more than 5,000 years. Along the way, the story changed, but its heart remained the same. It always spoke about transformation, both physical and emotional. Whether in the form of gods and monsters, knights and maidens, or a cursed prince and a kind-hearted girl, the theme remained universal. Love can humanize the monstrous, and compassion can reveal the truth behind the mask. What makes these origins so important is that they show how deeply this story is rooted in human psychology. From Mesopotamia to modern Europe, people have used tales like this to explore their fears of the unknown, their longing for acceptance, and their belief that love has the power to change even what seems impossible. The beast has always represented something within us, the untamed instincts, the parts of ourselves we hide or fear, and beauty has symbolized the light of understanding and empathy that can bring those hidden parts into harmony. When Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont rewrote Beauty and the Beast in the mid-18th century, she could not have imagined how far her story would travel. Her short, moral version became the foundation of a legend that would evolve through centuries of social change, artistic transformation, and technological revolutions. What began as an Enlightenment-era reflection on virtue and appearances grew into a mirror of human culture itself. Every generation found something new in it: fear, desire, power, or redemption, depending on what the world around them was struggling to understand. In Beaumont's time, France was alive with debates about morality, class, and education. Her story was more than a romantic fantasy; it was a teaching tool. She had been a governess, and she wrote her fairy tales for the daughters of aristocratic families, hoping to teach them values through storytelling. Beauty and the Beast was, in that sense, a lesson about choice and virtue. The beauty character represented intelligence and compassion, while her sisters stood for vanity and greed. The beast, meanwhile, symbolized the kind of marriage many young women were expected to enter: arranged, intimidating, and uncertain. The story encouraged girls to look beyond appearances and to value kindness and moral strength over status or charm. But outside Beaumont's moral purpose, something deeper was already forming. The world of the late 18th and 19th centuries began to change rapidly. Old beliefs about class, gender, and human nature were being challenged by revolutions, science, and new art. The beast, once a symbol of a man's inner goodness, started to represent the darker, more mysterious sides of human identity. By the 19th century, writers of the Romantic era saw in this story a reflection of their own struggles. They were fascinated by emotion, passion, and the untamed side of the human soul. The beast became not only a cursed prince, but a symbol of the misunderstood outsider, a figure rejected by society yet capable of deep feeling. The Romantics loved this duality: beauty as purity and reason, the beast as emotion and instinct. This tension between reason and passion was at the heart of the Romantic movement. In literature, we see similar themes appear in works like The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo and The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. Both stories, written in 19th century France, follow figures who are deformed or monstrous in appearance, but possess a rich inner life. They live hidden from society, longing for love and acceptance. These characters are spiritual descendants of Beaumont's beast. They take the story's original conflict, beauty versus monstrosity, and push it further, showing how society itself can become the real monster when it fails to see beyond appearances. As the Industrial Revolution reshaped Europe, the human imagination shifted again. Machines, cities, and new sciences changed how people thought about transformation and nature. Myths of beasts and enchantment met a new fascination with evolution and psychology. The idea that a person could change form, from man to beast or beast to man, now seemed less like magic and more like metaphor. The 19th century was also the age of Charles Darwin, Sigmund Freud, and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Each, in their own way, explored the boundary between the human and the monstrous. The beast, in this new world, began to represent the parts of ourselves that society hides or suppresses. The story became psychological. an inner battle between our civilized face and our wild, instinctive nature. When Freud introduced his ideas about the unconscious mind in the early 20th century, readers found new ways to understand the tale. The beast was no longer just cursed by a fairy. He was a mirror of the human psyche, a symbol of what we fear within ourselves. As storytelling moved into modern media, Beauty and the Beast continued to evolve. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, stage productions and early films brought the story to new audiences. One of the most influential adaptations came in 1946, when French filmmaker Jean Cocteau released La Belle et la Bête. His version transformed the old fairy tale into visual poetry. Cocteau's film appeared just after the Second World War, when Europe was still recovering from trauma and destruction. His version reflected that emotional atmosphere. The castle was dark and dreamlike, filled with living statues and candlelit corridors. The beast, played by Jean Marais, was both frightening and noble, a tragic figure rather than a monster. Beauty's journey was not only romantic but spiritual. She had to see past his appearance to find forgiveness and grace. The film's style, with its slow pacing and surreal beauty, turned the old fairy tale into a piece of art that spoke to a world haunted by violence and longing for renewal. Cocteau's adaptation changed the way people saw the story. No longer just a children's tale, it became a symbol of transformation, of humanity's ability to find love after horror. Many later versions drew inspiration from his interpretation. The film also established a pattern for all future retellings. Every generation would adapt the story to reflect its own anxieties and hopes. In the decades that followed, the beast would reappear again and again, but each time with a new face. During the 1950s and 60s, popular culture began experimenting with the idea of the sympathetic monster. Movies like King Kong, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and later The Elephant Man presented beings who were terrifying yet tragic, reflecting society's fear of difference and desire for empathy. The Beauty and the Beast dynamic became a recurring pattern, civilization confronted with what it cannot understand, and transformation achieved only through compassion. By the late 20th century, the story reached another turning point, this time through animation. In 1991, Disney released its version of Beauty and the Beast, which became one of the most successful animated films ever made. The movie simplified the story, but kept its heart intact. Belle, the intelligent and independent heroine, learns to love the beast for his kindness rather than his looks. What made Disney's version so important was not just its visual beauty, but its timing. The early 1990s were a period when Western culture was redefining gender roles and questioning traditional values. Belle was not a passive fairy tale princess. She was curious, outspoken, and brave. The beast, meanwhile, was not simply cursed by fate. He was learning to control his anger, pride, and loneliness. Their relationship became a model for emotional growth and mutual understanding. This adaptation also carried subtle modern messages. It suggested that love is not about changing another person into your ideal, but about helping each other become better versions of themselves. The enchanted castle, filled with talking objects and forgotten magic, symbolized the inner world, the parts of ourselves that need to be awakened by kindness. The success of the Disney film revived global interest in the tale. It inspired stage musicals, sequels, and countless reinterpretations. Each new version reflected its own era's social values. In the early 21st century, storytellers began reimagining Beauty and the Beast through feminist, psychological, and even scientific lenses. Some saw it as a story about empathy and trauma. Others read it as a metaphor for taming the darker instincts of humanity. In literature and film, the line between beauty and beast continued to blur. Stories like Twilight, The Shape of Water, and even science fiction series like Star Trek or Avatar explored love across boundaries of species or form. The old myth had evolved into something universal, a metaphor for all relationships where difference must be overcome through understanding. The story's endurance also owes much to its flexibility. Unlike other fairy tales that rely on fixed morals or endings, Beauty and the Beast invites reinterpretation. Each era reshapes the beast according to its fears. In one century, he represents the moral flaws of humanity. In another, the misunderstood outsider. And in the modern age, he becomes a symbol of emotional healing and acceptance. The conflict remains the same, the struggle to see the human within the monstrous. But the meaning grows richer each time it is told. From Beaumont's drawing rooms to Disney's animation studios, the story's journey reflects our own evolution as a species. The beast's curse has changed from a spell cast by a fairy to a metaphor for isolation, trauma, or prejudice. Beauty's courage has shifted from obedience to curiosity and independence. And together they continue to reveal one timeless truth, that transformation is never purely magical, it is emotional and moral. Even beyond Western culture, versions of this story now appear in film and literature around the world. In Japan, manga and anime reinterpret the tale through themes of inner strength and vulnerability. In India, television dramas have adapted it to explore love across social barriers. The pattern remains unmistakable. A person who looks like a monster is redeemed by someone who sees their humanity. Across cultures, that message continues to resonate. What makes this development remarkable is how the story's core conflict between fear and love, judgment and empathy adapts so easily to new contexts. When society changes, the story changes with it. In each retelling, audiences find themselves asking the same question: who is truly the beast? The answer shifts with time, but the question remains powerful because it challenges how we define beauty, morality, and identity. At the heart of Beauty and the Beast lies an idea that has shaped human imagination for more than 5,000 years, that what appears monstrous can hide something deeply human. It is not simply a story about love. It is a meditation on perception, transformation, and the hidden sides of the self. Over centuries, this story has acted like a cultural mirror, reflecting changing human values while keeping its central question intact. Can love truly overcome fear and difference? When modern thinkers began to analyze the tale, they discovered that it worked on many symbolic levels. Psychologists saw it as a story about inner growth. Anthropologists traced its global variations, and philosophers read it as a metaphor for moral evolution. Each interpretation added a new layer of meaning, proving that the story's endurance was not accidental, but deeply rooted in human psychology. One of the most influential readings came from the world of psychology, especially from the ideas of Carl Jung and later thinkers influenced by him. Jung believed that myths and fairy tales reflect universal patterns in the human mind, what he called archetypes. In this view, the beast represents the shadow, the dark or hidden part of ourselves that we often reject or fear. Beauty symbolizes consciousness, compassion, and the ability to integrate those hidden parts into a whole self. When Beauty accepts the beast, she does what the human mind must do to grow. She looks directly at the parts of life that seem frightening or ugly and finds the humanity within them. The transformation of the beast back into a prince is, symbolically, the transformation of fear into understanding. This interpretation helps explain why the story resonates so strongly across cultures. It speaks to a universal human experience, the struggle to accept what we do not understand, whether in others or in ourselves. In societies where conformity is valued, the tale becomes a call for empathy and individuality. In times of fear and division, it becomes a reminder that compassion can dissolve hatred. The story's symbolism also connects deeply to social history. For much of human civilization, people have judged others by their appearance, by beauty, skin color, wealth, or power. Beauty and the Beast reverses those values. It suggests that true beauty lies in character and that ugliness often hides misunderstood goodness. This moral idea became especially powerful in the modern age, when societies began confronting prejudice, racism, and inequality. The tale's message that empathy and love can reveal truth has been used in classrooms, therapy, and art as a way to teach acceptance and understanding. In literature and cinema, this theme evolved into one of the most persistent archetypes, the misunderstood monster. From the 19th century Frankenstein to the 20th century King Kong, and into modern films like The Shape of Water, the pattern remains. A creature judged as dangerous or ugly reveals emotional depth, and through love or connection, both the creature and the human are transformed. This theme has influenced not only Western art, but also global storytelling. In Japan, for example, Studio Ghibli's films often echo the same emotional balance found in Beauty and the Beast. In Spirited Away, a young girl befriends beings who seem monstrous but turn out to be misunderstood spirits. In Princess Mononoke, humans and beasts clash until they learn to see each other's pain. These stories share the same spiritual core, the belief that compassion bridges the gap between worlds. Japanese folklore, much like the old European tales, teaches that kindness can turn demons into allies, and that love, even in the face of fear, restores harmony. In India, similar ideas appear in ancient epics like the Mahabharata, where love and understanding often redeem characters marked by physical or moral flaws. The concept that divine beauty is not found in outward perfection but in the soul is central to many Eastern philosophies. In that sense, the tale of Beauty and the Beast is not purely European. It expresses something global, humanity's effort to see beyond illusion and find truth within imperfection. Feminist scholars later revisited the story and asked deeper questions about power and transformation. They pointed out that early versions of the tale often reflected the social roles of their time. Women expected to be patient and forgiving. Men expected to change through a woman's love. But modern retellings have rebalanced that dynamic. Instead of one partner saving the other, both characters grow together. Beauty learns independence and courage, while the Beast learns vulnerability and empathy. This shift reflects broader cultural changes, especially the move toward equality and emotional openness in relationships. The story also carries economic and social symbolism. In Beaumont's 18th century version, Beauty's father loses his fortune and is forced to leave the city for a simpler life. This fall from wealth mirrors the shifting class structures of the time. Beauty's choice to sacrifice herself for her father and live with the Beast represents moral nobility over materialism. Her eventual happiness shows that virtue and kindness, not wealth, lead to true fulfillment. Later adaptations kept this theme but expanded its meaning, suggesting that personal growth often requires facing discomfort and fear. Religious thinkers have also seen moral lessons in the story. The Beast's curse and redemption resemble themes found in Christian thought: sin, repentance, and salvation through love. Yet the story's power lies in how it transcends specific religions. It speaks to a universal moral truth, that goodness is not given by birth or beauty, but earned through compassion and self-awareness. The Beast's transformation is not simply physical, but spiritual, symbolizing forgiveness and renewal. Across the centuries, the influence of this tale has reached far beyond storytelling. Artists, psychologists, and educators have used it as a tool to explore empathy and emotional intelligence. In schools, the story teaches children not to judge others by appearance. In therapy, it is used as a metaphor for self-acceptance. In popular culture, it continues to inspire new art forms, from ballet and opera to film and digital media. One reason the story remains so relevant is its emotional honesty. It acknowledges that fear of the unknown is natural, but insists that love and understanding can transform it. This lesson has echoed through political and social movements that call for inclusion and empathy. When people march for equality, protect the environment, or challenge prejudice, they are acting out the same moral transformation found in Beauty and the Beast, the act of seeing the other as human. In modern psychology, this process is sometimes described as integration, the ability to accept all parts of oneself. In this sense, Beauty's acceptance of the Beast is not just romantic, it is deeply psychological. She sees in him what others cannot, not only his suffering but his potential. That act of seeing gives him back his humanity. The story suggests that the greatest power we have is not magic or strength, but understanding. In today's world, surrounded by technology and media that often promote surface beauty, the story's message feels more urgent than ever. It challenges the obsession with appearance and perfection. It asks whether we can look beyond digital filters, social status, and cultural divisions to recognize real value in others. The tale's endurance shows that humanity continues to struggle with this same question. What does it mean to truly see someone for who they are? Cultural studies have also shown that Beauty and the Beast influences how we talk about transformation itself. The idea that love or empathy can change someone has shaped countless books, movies, and even advertising. From romantic comedies to superhero films, the message repeats: kindness reveals truth, and connection heals. While this can sometimes be simplified in popular media, the original idea remains profound. Transformation is not about fixing others, but awakening what already exists within them. Even the way the story ends carries deep symbolism. The beast turns back into a prince, but this is not a reward for Beauty's obedience. It is a symbol of mutual awakening. The curse breaks because both characters have changed. The beast learns humility and care. Beauty learns courage and emotional insight. Together, they bridge the gap between the physical and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen. Around the world, people continue to reinterpret the story in new forms: novels, plays, musicals, and digital storytelling. Each version keeps the same emotional truth while adapting to its culture's values. In African folklore, there are stories where humans marry spirits or animals, teaching respect for nature. In Chinese legends, dragons or serpents become human through love, blending mythology with moral lessons. In all these variations, the moral remains constant. Love and compassion reveal what reason and fear cannot. Ultimately, Beauty and the Beast survives because it speaks to the most human of experiences, the desire to be truly known. It tells us that love is not blind. It sees more clearly than anything else. It looks beyond appearances and finds the person hidden behind the mask. That message has guided civilizations, inspired art, and comforted those who feel unseen or misunderstood. The story also reminds us that transformation is never one-sided. Every beauty has a bit of the beast within, and every beast carries a spark of beauty waiting to be recognized. That is why the tale continues to resonate across generations. It does not promise a perfect ending. It promises understanding, and that is something humanity will always need. Through all its retellings, Beauty and the Beast has become more than a fairy tale. It is a living philosophy that travels across time and culture, reminding people that empathy is the highest form of wisdom. Its message has shaped art, psychology, and social thought, encouraging us to face our fears and see ourselves in the eyes of others. In the end, the enigma of this 5,500-year-old story is not why it survives, but what it reveals. It shows that beneath the surface of myth and fantasy lies a truth that defines us all, that love, when it is real, transforms not only the one who is loved, but also the one who loves. From the myths of ancient temples to the screens of the modern age, Beauty and the Beast has carried one timeless message: that the power to transform lies in compassion. It has traveled through languages, religions, and empires, always reminding humanity that love is not about changing others, but about seeing them clearly. Its endurance across more than 5 millennia shows that this is not just a story about a beast and a beauty, but about us, our fear of the unknown, our hope for acceptance, and our belief that kindness can turn darkness into light. The tale may be ancient, but its truth remains forever new.